Ladies and gentlemen, would you please help me welcome my teacher, my friend, retired Sergeant Stephen P. Duncanson.
You're never too old
to be what you might have been.
to be what you might have been.
And I think that's a lesson that we can all learn and take. So my purpose here today is simply to share just a few words of encouragement and support and affirmation for not only the members of School Safety Division, which we certainly applaud for the job and work that you are doing, but all of us here that serve the city of New York. What we're going to simply use here today is the word safety to communicate the message. And so the S stands for service. I often like to, I believe that clarity of thinking demands clarity of definition. So I look to find that word service as to create or deliver value to another. Service is to create or deliver. How is this? Develop a habit of delivering more service than you get paid for. I think that's a reality for each and every one of us. How we distinguish ourselves, how we set ourselves apart is not simply what we do based on what's on our job description. It's based on what's in us internally that we want to, that's expressed through our activities each and every day. And to allow that to be the thing that drives us, not simply the paycheck. When you do more than you get paid to do, eventually you get paid more for what you do. People begin to see, people look for excellence. Reg mentioned that word, and what's the word excellent? Excellent means to exceed, surpass, go beyond, excel. The Tiger. Remember that song came out like years ago with Rocky with Eye the Tiger? And I never really knew what Eye the Tiger meant till a couple of years ago I was watching the Animal Channel with my twins, right? Actually, I was watching it by myself. But anyway, they were talking about the lions and the tigers, and they were contrasting the two. And they're saying how lions are the king of the jungle, they're the top of the food chain. And they roam throughout the whole jungle, determining what they want, that no one messes with them, they get their food and everything's all good. Tigers, on the other hand, they stake out a certain portion of the jungle. And after they've captured their prey, they don't eat with their eyes down. Matter of fact, there was one in this particular scene, the tiger had caught a kudu, so like an antelope. And it was a smaller one, but it saw a larger one going by, and it went after that. So it's not simply satisfied with what has already been done. It recognizes that there's greater potential, more than can be realized on the outside, and it takes steps and actions to make that happen. So that's what we're talking about, maintaining and having the eye of the tiger. Setting the standard of excellence. Question is asked, how is a standard set? A standard is set when we create a new level of performance. The plane has something called an attitude indicator. And what the attitude indicator is, it represents the position of the plane in relationship to the ground. And the reality is this, is that a plane cannot take off or land successfully with a poor attitude. One of my vicarious mentors in the area of leadership, his name is John Maxwell, Dr. John C. Maxwell. He wrote a book called The Winning Attitude. And in there he describes what some of the aspects of attitude, the characteristics of attitude are. He says, attitude is the advanced man of your true self. In other words, your attitude shows up before you do. He said, our attitude is an outward expression based on an inward happening. So our attitude is actually a reflection of what's going on the inside of us that people can see without us saying a word. Our attitude is more honest and more consistent than our word. Our attitude is never content until it is expressed. Our attitude is a thing that draws people to us or repels them from us. Our attitude is the librarian of our past, the speaker of our present, and the prophet of our future. All in all, attitude is the difference maker. So ensuring that we have the proper attitude in doing what we're doing is extremely important. So we have service, attitude. The F stands for forgiveness. Forgiveness. And of course that means to release from obligation, guilt, and to pardon. Two entities I refer to specifically when I talk about forgiveness. The two most critical ones, ourselves and others. Keeping short accounts from day to day. Sometimes, invariably in us doing our jobs, there can be people who might possibly get on our nerves. That ever happened to you? That may happen. And the key is to keep some short accounts, because if you allow unforgiveness to stay inside of you, it's going to eat you away. So we said this, that unforgiveness, like not forgiving someone, is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Reality is we have to forgive, we have to release those things. And as we do that, and recognize this, that some of us might say, oh, I don't know if I can forgive. Here's the deal. Forgiveness is a decision, just like love is a decision. Forgiveness is a decision. You decide to. So that means that you can. See, can has to do with ability. Will has to do with attitude. We can, but will you? So please, here's the principle. Whatever you fail to forgive in life, you attach to yourself for the rest of your life. You can choose not to forgive someone if you want to. They'll forget all about it. You're carrying around, dragging it. Every time someone says their name, you get all tense, you take it on, right? And they forgot all about it. Whatever you fail to forgive in life, you attach to yourself for the rest of your life. Say, let it go.
Let it go.
Each and every day to continue to grow and develop ourselves, to not simply rely on what we learned before. School is never out. Life is always teaching life, and it's happening. Lessons in framing events. Because life is nothing more than a series of events from day to day, from the time you get up to the time you go to bed, event after event after event. And how you frame that event in your mind, which is a psychological term, how you frame those things determines whether you believe your life is good or bad. Life is also, again, teaching us lessons. The key is, are we learning those lessons? And that's something that each and every one of us have to make a decision for ourselves. Together, everyone achieves more. It's the value of synergy over energy. Energy is individual effort. Synergy is collective effort. And by virtue of collective effort, together we can do a whole lot more than we can do by ourselves. We are an organization of a multiplicity of units. But it's by virtue of all of us coming together, doing what we do best, that makes the name for the NYPD. And so let's continue to focus on developing ourselves as a team. Think about your team from this standpoint as well. Of your associations, who are those people that you are hanging out with? Are they making you better, or are they making you bitter? My dad used to tell me when I was a kid, he said, your best friend brings the best out of you. Not simply the person who's around all the time. Now, how many of us know we have some friends who maybe we should kind of leave? Okay? Like you can't come to these certain places, right? Here's some questions we have to ask ourselves. With regard to your friends, what do they have you thinking? What do they have you reading? Where do they have you going? What do they have you saying? You know, my buddy of mine's here with me today, Phil and I, and we were talking last night as I was doing a telephone interview of one of my favorite books, a quote from there that says, as iron sharpens iron, so one man or woman sharpens another. And that needs to be the name of the game. Who are you sharpening yourself against? Keep in mind that iron or sword cannot sharpen itself against cardboard. It has to sharpen itself against something that's just as sharp or sharper than it is. So check your associations. Who are your friends? Who's around you? What do they have you thinking, and is that okay? Even from the standpoint of leadership. In the book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, my mentor, John Maxwell, says this. He says that a leader's potential is determined by those closest to him. The law of the inner circle says that a leader's potential is determined by those closest to him, not simply the leader's ability on their own. See, because as a leader, you can do something good by yourself, but to do something great, you need a team. And those that are around you are the ones that determine that. So don't just hook up your homeboys on your crew. Bring the people around you who you know are going to help make you look better. Why speaks to purpose. Purpose is the why behind the what. So the what is the job. The why is the question each and every one. Why the job? Why are you here? Why do we do what we do? So a great man once said this, that when you know the why, you can endure any how. Because clearly during the course of our careers, there's some challenges that come up. Some things that try us, that test us. But when we understand why we're here, why we do what we do, it allows us to be able to push through and to overcome the challenge. Differentiating between boundaries and obstacles. Quite simply, a boundary is to be understood. An obstacle is to be overcome. And each and every time we overcome an obstacle, we become better than we were before we met that obstacle. Someone said this once, that every obstacle introduces a person to themselves. In other words, every time you run into a challenge, it lets you know, what is it that I need to do next to get to that next level? And if we view it that way, again, that's how we can get there. Where it said, if all you get from your job is a paycheck, you'll always be underpaid. there ultimately has to be something else that we garner. Because the reality is this: how much money does it take for us to give our lives? It's not a money issue. It's something else that's there. Clearly, we all want to be paid fairly, but ultimately there's something else that's there. And tapping into that for each and every one of us, I think, is what will enhance our lives and our experience. A weary mother returned from the store, lugging her groceries through the kitchen door. Awaiting her arrival was her 8-year-old son, anxious to report what his younger brother had done. While I was out playing and Dad was on a call, TJ took his crayons and he wrote on the wall, "It's on the new wallpaper you just hung in the den. I told him you'd be mad to have to do it again." She let out a moan and with a furrowed brow said, "Where's your little brother right now?" She emptied her arms and with a purposeful stride, she marched to the closet where he'd gone to hide. She called his full name as she entered the room. He trembled with fear. He knew this meant doom. For the next 10 minutes, she ranted and raved about the expensive wallpaper, how she had saved. Lamenting all the work it would take to repair, she condemned his actions in total lack of care. The more she scolded, the madder she got. Then she stomped from the room, totally distraught. She marched to the den to confirm her fears. When she saw the wall, her eyes flooded with tears. The message she read pierced her soul like a dart. It said, "I love Mommy, surrounded by a heart." Well, the wallpaper remained just as she found it, with an empty picture frame hung to surround it. A reminder to her, and indeed to us all, make sure you take time to read the handwriting on the wall. That aspect of love is the thing that undergirds, supports, and covers the aspect of service, attitude, forgiveness, all of them, and the ones who are easily forgotten. So I would encourage us each and every day as we do what we do to remember that there's no law against love. That is the greatest commandment of all. My time is done, and thank you for yours, everyone. My pleasure.